Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Amanda Barrientez. Dr. Amanda Barrientez, known as the Money Healer, is the founder of Nfa Money and the creator of the Money Blocks profile. She helps online entrepreneurs heal their relationship to money so they can work less and make more. After going from food stamps to building a six-figure business fast, it has become her inspired mission to help a minimum of 5 million entrepreneurs break through their money blocks so they can build businesses they love and give them time and money freedom. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So just so people can get to know you, why don't you tell us your story, how you started out? Because it started out like you were having a hard time. So
Yeah, definitely. I often think about entrepreneurs and especially coach types starting from some sort of downfall and then going, oh, I've got to fix myself. And then I get to help other people do the same thing. So for me, it started really with crying on the floor. So it was one night crying on the floor, and it was because I had left my 15-year marriage having an affair. My next relationship wasn't working out. And so here I was looking at this empty basement. And so, my boyfriend was moving out and I was looking at this empty basement, and I'd spent the whole day looking on Craigslist for houses and I couldn't afford anything. I had 3 kids and I was in grad school, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to be homeless. I don't know where I'm going to live. And I had a free counselor at the university where I was teaching, and she's like, you got to go on food stamps. And I had a lot of shame and embarrassment around it. And so I was just, having this moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired of this. This feels awful. And I had this revelation in that moment that I was the center of all the problems. It was like, oh, I'm the common denominator here. I got to do something different. And what was really cool about that moment is that I didn't know when I, declared that what was going to happen. I just knew I was tired of my reality and it decided I was willing to do whatever it takes to shift and do something different. And it ended up leading me to podcasts. And, I was really busy. And so what I would do is listen to podcasts when I was taking my kids to school and washing the dishes, and just every moment I got, and everything I was learning started to change the way I was thinking about things. And in the kind of magical way the world works, simultaneously, my department where I was earning my PhD was having this huge national news level fallout. Professors were leaving and people were stressed. And I was just going, oh crap, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, or I don't want to be a professor anymore. And so I thought, all of these podcasts that I'm listening to are done by coaches, and I really love to teach. So maybe I'm going to just take the leap and become a business owner. So I decided to finish my dissertation, get my PhD. And when I graduated, I took the leap into building a business. And in that first year of business, I went 6 figures. And so all the things that I learned in that process, and then have gotten to work with a whole bunch of awesome entrepreneurs through their process of working through imposter syndrome and money blocks and money fears, and helping people really transform their relationship to money and create lives where they feel like they have a lot of more control and flexibility and freedom, and they're not just out there floundering around working really hard to make the money they make. So that's what my business has turned into today.
wow. So what were you studying when you went to university?
Sociology.
Okay. So you went from educator
Yeah.
to entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. And really interestingly, I was working with incarcerated men. So I did life history interviews with incarcerated men, and I was really intrigued by their stories of transformation and understanding how people in such horrible conditions, these were men who had spent 18 years incarcerated, had been gang involved in their childhoods, and spent lots of years in solitary confinement. And just, I looked at their trauma across their life course and noticed that, when they decided to change, things really changed for them. And then they were in this rehabilitation program. And I just thought, wow, if people in this position can have such rapid transformation and really have big shifts, what's the magic formula there? And it wasn't really what I wrote about in my dissertation, but it was what I really wanted to write about.
Right. And that is wonderful. It's a wonderful miracle, really, that we can change our minds and change our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It's surprising actually how much you can change pretty quickly when you make a decision.
Mhm. So how old were your children when all this was beginning to happen?
They were in elementary and high school. So they were elementary, middle, and high school. I actually had a year where I was driving them. Oh, it was wild. It was hard. All three of them were in, one was in elementary, one in middle school, and one in high school. So driving around everywhere, and just, I clocked it. It was 4 hours in the car, carpooling. And I was like, huh, that's how I got to listen to a lot of podcasts.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so as you were going through this, what were your kids saying, or what was their reaction, and how were you dealing with that?
Which parts? Like the money parts?
Yeah, the money part.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
things were
It,
changing and you were leaving university and you were switching careers.
yeah. It was, for them, they saw such big changes in me that I think that it was really eye-opening for them. And I started parenting completely differently. My relationships started changing. I mean, everything changed. And so it went from them really seeing me. I was always really close with my kids because I was such a young mom, and we talked a lot, and I coddled them a lot. And as I started to learn empowerment tools, I became less of a people pleaser. And so my kids were like, wait, where'd the mom go that says yes to everything? And so there were some interesting changes there. And then on the other side of it, it's empowering. And my oldest daughter is now an entrepreneur. So that's really fun. And, I'll be interested to see if the others follow suit.
That is wonderful. And I was thinking that something like that just had to happen, because whenever you make big changes, the people around you, whether they're your children or your spouse or your family or your friends, some people are going to like the changes and some people are going to hate the changes.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. It's true. You lose relationships. And I always tell people loss is the gain of that which is more aligned. And so, of course, with your kids, that's not going to happen. But there's people in your life who you definitely won't be friends with anymore when you start on a rigorous personal growth and development journey, because your outer world changes according to your inner world. And so when you start to change from within, everything on the outside changes. So it's been hugely transformational for my kids.
Mhm. So you made this decision to change, to go into your own business, and you quickly scaled from food stamps. How did that happen? Besides the mindset.
Yeah, I took very strategic action. I mean, really, I had 2 months of money saved up when I graduated. And luckily, I didn't live on a very expensive budget. So I thought, I've got 2 months of living money, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hustle, and I got to have something work. And so I just went to every networking event I possibly could and talked to everybody and started promoting myself. And things happened really fast.
Wonderful. So that's really important too.
Yeah.
Reaching out to people, getting to know people, finding out what their needs are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I like always tell entrepreneurs, I think there's a lot of myths about entrepreneurship that are out there. And it's interesting because I like to teach people to work less and make more. In the beginning, the learning curve is huge. When you're starting something new that you don't know what you're doing, you feel like an infant, and you got to do a lot of experimentation and refining yourself and defining yourself and understanding who it is you want to work with and what it is you're good at doing. And you develop a whole system around the methods that you use to help people. And it takes time. It's not something you just do overnight. The only reason you would ever be an overnight success is because you've done it before. Let's say you've already built the network and you've already built a successful business, then you could build another business and have it be pretty quickly successful. But when you're starting out and you don't know anything about it, you're going to have a learning curve. So, when I tell people I went, from food stamps to a six-figure business fast, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a couple of years where it was like me changing my mindset, me being very strategic, me building my website after grad school and tucking my kids and, spending a couple hours like on WordPress building my website before I was even starting a business, because I had to do all of those things at once. And so, those first years there's phases of business building, I'll say.
There definitely is. And how did you get the confidence to go out and sell something that there was all these uncertainties about, and you were going out and saying, hey, I can help you, without that really background of helping? How did you build your confidence, or how did you actually sell yourself while you were selling them?
It's interesting. I think because I had been teaching, I taught over 2,500 students at the University of Colorado, and they loved me and got awesome results. I taught from a very coaching type perspective. So I had the benefit of having a lot of success in terms of knowing that I could teach people things that worked. And so I think that really gave me a leg up right away. And the other thing is that when I started my journey of listening to podcasts and reading, I did all of my focus for quite a while was on confidence development. I really realized I struggled a lot with social anxiety and just playing small, shrinking, pleasing people and not speaking up. And so I did a lot of leadership training, a lot of confidence development, and every workshop I took was about developing myself. And so, I always tell people that's the number one place that you have to start, because you only get this one life and you only have you, and you've got to become a master of yourself. And then you have a magic wand to create whatever you want.
Beautiful. So what did you create out of all of this?
Well, I just got married in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Meaning in business, in life, every part. Yeah, I have a growing business. I love the people that I work with. Like I say, I work less every year. I make more money and I have more fun because I'm learning what my zone of genius is. And I learn what I'm really good at and who I love to work with. And so it just gets more and more fun every year. And, my personal world has just completely changed. I have multiple passive streams of income. It was like before I had no money and budgeted every single penny. Now I have passive streams of income and have a really nice life of freedom.
That is wonderful. So you're teaching people to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So what kind of processes do you take people through?
I use my Nfa Money Formula. So in my Nfa Money Formula, I help people recognize and remove their blocks and reframe their beliefs and then rewrite their reality. So in that block part, I consistently saw across the board all different types of entrepreneurs at different levels of income. It didn't matter what type of business. They all had what I call competing commitments. So this is when your unconscious and your conscious battle against each other, because your unconscious is 95% of you and your conscious is only 5% of you. If you say you want something consciously that your unconscious doesn't believe you can have, your unconscious is going to win out every time. And so I just kept seeing this over and over with people. And so I really walked them through understanding how to recognize what's holding them back unconsciously. And the interesting thing is most entrepreneurs will, they'll get a business consultant and they'll want to learn all this strategy, but they can't seem to understand why they can't break through the invisible ceiling. And it's because they have all of these competing commitments holding them back. And in a money world, I think of them as money blocks.
Okay. Wow. So you talked about, you stayed in your zone of genius and that helped you to make more money and not work as much. So are you teaching people that? And what exactly how do you do that?
Yeah, so a really simple clue to people's zone of genius is one exercise that's really easy to do is write in your journal, if I had $1 billion, what would I do with my time? And then look back and scan your last few months of your life and go, what do I spontaneously get up and do every day and enjoy? And no one needs to tell me to do it. And I don't have any fear around it. And I have ultimate confidence because I'm willing to do whatever it takes in that area. Those are clues to your zone of genius. And then every day when you wake up, you want to ask yourself, is this bringing me joy? And do things that are aligned with joy, because joy is always an indicator that you're living in your zone of genius. Anything that you resent, feel frustrated about, feel a lot of fear around, don't enjoy doing, those are things that are out of alignment for you.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people want to find something that will keep them in that state of moving forward, of being positive, of feeling good. Do you have any morning practices or anything that you do every day that puts you in that state and keeps you there?
Yes, and all powerful people do. I always tell people success leaves clues. I had a podcast. I did 217 episodes. The first series of that podcast was Max Potential Habits. And I would always ask the people at the end, what are the 3 max potential habits that have brought you where you are today? And morning routine, almost everybody says. And in that morning routine, it's very common, similar to what I do: exercise, personal growth and development, journaling, and meditation. And I do that almost every single day. Some days I don't do all of those, but most days I do all of those.
Yeah, and I found that to be very helpful also, even if you have a few minutes. I mean, I have some meditations that are 12 minutes long. It's like, okay, I have
Yep.
12 minutes. I'm going to do it because
Yeah,
I know my day
exactly.
is so much better when I do.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It's interesting because we have busy lives, and most people think, well, once I get to this level of success or some goal that they think they want to achieve, then I'll start doing the things that will be good for me. It's the opposite. You attract through being aligned in doing the things now, and then it makes it easier. So most people are making their lives a lot harder than they need to be by offsetting the things that make it easier, the things that get them into alignment, and the things that have them be energetically feeling good. And so meditation is one of those really powerful tools. Same with journaling and exercise. A lot of people think, oh, I'll lose weight when I have more success because then I'll get to go to the gym. And that's kind of like saying I'll lose 20 pounds and then I'll go to the gym. That makes no sense.
No, that really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, they say that we say the same words to ourselves over and over again, day after day, sometimes months after months, which I think have to be related to some of those money blocks. So
Yeah.
that story or that running chatter that's going by, how do we get a hold of that and choose the thoughts we want to to choose?
Yeah, it's recognition. I mean, I always tell people you've got to choose to be radically responsible, and you're the one that's got to start noticing when you're beating yourself up and having a train of thought that you don't want to have. It's like letting a wild animal run loose in your house and looking around going, why is my house so messy all the time, without stopping the animal, tying it up,
That sounds ridiculous.
right? But we do it all the time. We just let our brain control us instead of going like, oh, wait. And it takes training. It's the path of least resistance in your brain. And we have a negativity bias. So we're wired through a negativity bias where we remember negative things 8 times more easily than positive things. And it's for our survival. And so you actually need to do mindset training in order to train it in a new direction. And it's so cool when you notice it's starting to work, because all of a sudden your initial thought will be one that's completely different than it used to be. And you won't have the old thought that was negative go to like, oh, it's doom and gloom. Everything sucks. My life is bad. I don't know what to do. Instead, you start to move into solution orientation, and your brain, instead of going, everything's wrong, goes to everything's right. What's possible? How can I? Instead of I can't, I'm not sure, I'm scared. And it's a training process. It's just like going to the gym and training your biceps. If you go there one time in the month and think, oh, I'm going to lift 100 pounds one time a month, and then I'm going to have these beautiful, amazing biceps, not going to happen. Got to do it every day. And it's the same exact thing with mindset training. You rewire your brain in a new direction.
Mm. Yeah, and when you say be radically responsible, a lot of people, they shy away from responsibility. Like, oh, but I responsibility has to do with accountability too. And it has to do with consistency.
Yeah.
And when you have those things get better. Even if you're practicing them poorly, one day they get better. And if you keep practicing them, even if a little poorly, things do kind of move up.
Yeah, just 1 degree changes. You can have massive shifts with 1 degree changes over the course of a year.
hmm So what are some of the main money blocks that you see when you're working with people?
Yeah, so I saw the consistent pattern, and I created a money blocks profile, and it gives you 3, which is, I think of them as paradigm beliefs. So money is bad, money is scarce, and money causes stress. And under these 3, there's really specific thoughts that happen and outcomes of these. So if you are stuck with a money is bad, often these are spiritual, religious types that have that kind of history where they go, money is the root of all evil. It's not spiritual to charge for this because it was a gift, or someone's suffering, so I don't want to charge them money for it. So they get really stuck in this over delivering and undercharging and devaluing themselves. And it causes them to get really burnt out and not want to do what they're doing anymore. And they feel bad for people who are poor, but they remain poor. And then they don't have the power to help anybody because they aren't charging money for their services, because somewhere in them they have this unconscious belief system that money is bad. And then the money is scarce. Usually this one causes people to actually make a lot of money, but not feel very good about it because they think money is scarce. They push really hard to make a lot, but they feel like there's never going to be enough. So no matter how much they make, they have a hard time relaxing. And it's also people who think really black and white, where they go, oh, I can't have a successful business and a successful relationship because there's not enough time for all of these things. Or they get stuck with a lot of imposter syndrome because there's this not enoughness going on. And then in the money causes stress belief, it often has to do with this misaligned belief that somewhere in their history, they saw people working really hard for money, and whether they were successful or not, and that they kept believing money causes stress and I've got to work really hard to make money. So I'm going to avoid looking at money and being strategic about it, which causes me to work harder. And so these people often go, oh my God, I could never work 10 times as hard to make 10 times as much money. And they just put too much on their plate. They burn out and they feel really stuck and frustrated, and they can't understand why they can't break through to the next level.
And it almost seems overwhelming, that last one that you described, where they're just
Yeah.
overwhelmed to the point where, they're ready to give up.
Yeah. Well, and really all three of them get very overwhelmed. And all three of those blocks, the symptom is often over delivering and undercharging, because there's this imbalance in the situation where they're not being strategic, they're not aligned in their belief, and they're having a hard time valuing themselves and feeling good about money. And so they sabotage in ways that are unconscious. And every time they get to a level where they could break through and finally relax and have some ease and flow, something happens. A car breaks down, they hire somebody who steals a whole bunch of money from their company. All kinds of interesting things, because there's a self-sabotage mechanism that is a competing commitment.
Got it. So what can we do to empower ourselves to have positive, empowering, I guess, relationship with money?
You start by getting conscious. Two things. First, when people say, how can I empower my relationship to money? And I ask them, well, what have you read or learned about money? And they'll say nothing. So most people are just going along in life thinking that they learned about money from their parents, from society, from wherever they're at now. They never stop to take the time to go, what do I believe about money? What do I actually believe about money? What are my money memories? What did I learn to believe about money over time? And this is never about beating your parents up. They did the best they knew how to do. And it's about you getting empowered from today forward so that you can make different conscious choices. You can't make a conscious choice until you see what's unconsciously operating your I call it your money OS, your money operating system. And you got to debug it by going what do I believe about my money story? So I always tell people to move through the money blocks profile, rewrite their money story, and start to understand their relationship to money and their beliefs around money. So a really simple tool they can do is write down on a piece of paper, wealthy people are blank, and then whatever comes to mind, or making money is blank and whatever comes to mind. And you'll see some really interesting things come up, because you'll go, oh, I never realized I even thought that about money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting how when you start to write, different things come out your hand than come out of your head.
Yes, it's why journaling is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, I love journaling. So if people wanted to work with you, entrepreneurs, how do they find you, and what services do you have available now?
Yeah, they can find me all things NFA Money. So if they go to nfamoney.com, if they go to NFA Money on YouTube, NFA Money on Instagram, those are the three places I hang out the most. And then taking the Money Blocks profile is a really good place to start. So that's at moneyblocksprofile.com. It's a 2-minute quiz. It gives them really amazing answer quickly. They're like, oh my God, how did you know that? And then it gives them a PDF printout and a webinar so they can start to learn more. And then working with me, that leads them into my whole circle of offerings.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yeah. So you really did use a sociology degree after all.
In many ways, yes.
Yes, yes. So just a personal question. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
I align my entire life around fulfillment and happiness. So everything I do. I love podcasting. I'm growing my YouTube channel. I so enjoy spending time with my husband. I have 4 kids now, love my family time. We just rented a huge lodge for Christmas. I know this won't be released around that time, but family time, travel, reading, building my business, working with people, helping them on their money beliefs and transformation. My whole life is aligned around doing what I love.
That is beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for all your insights. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a good time.
Yeah. So I have one last question before we complete. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Live by this awareness. If you don't like what you're getting on the outside, you've got to change what's within, because your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So be radically responsible. Realize that in that responsibility, you have the power to create a life that you love. And there's so much abundance. There's so many tools out there. You first have got to commit to working on your inner game and mastering yourself. That is the number one thing to do to live an incredible life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon.